The stars looked peaceful from the bridge of the Vraxian command ship. Commander Zethka stood with his long arms folded behind his back, watching the distant lights through the large viewing window. His blue skin had the pale glow that came with years of deep space travel. Behind him, younger officers worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. "Tell me about war," Zethka said to his newest officer, a young Vraxian named Kexd, who had just finished military training. Kexd straightened his thin frame and spoke clearly. "War is mathematics, Commander. We calculate ship strength, weapon power, and defensive capabilities. When one side has clear advantage, the weaker side surrenders. This prevents unnecessary loss of life and resources." "Good," Zethka nodded. "And what happens during battle?" "Ships maintain maximum range for safety. Energy weapons only, as they can be controlled precisely. When hull damage reaches 60%, retreat is mandatory. Casualties should never exceed 5% of crew complement." Zethka smiled, showing small white teeth. "Excellent. This is how civilized species conduct warfare. We have maintained galactic peace for 300 years using these principles." The bridge door opened with a soft sound. "Communications officer." Lexpa approached with a datapad in her hands. Her movements were quick and nervous. "Commander, we have received new intelligence about the humans," she said. Zethka turned around, his large eyes focusing on the datapad. "What about them?" "They have been admitted to the Galactic Federation as junior members. Admiral Lisa Hayes of the Federation Council has assigned them patrol duties in the Outer Rim sectors." "Humans," Zethka repeated the word slowly. "The newcomers from that small blue planet. What do we know about their military capabilities?" Lexpa touched the datapad, bringing up information. "Very little, Commander. They kept to themselves for decades after first contact. Their ships appear crude by our standards. Thick metal hulls instead of energy barriers, primitive projectile weapons alongside basic energy systems." "Interesting." Zethka walked to a star chart displayed on the wall. "Where are they being assigned?" "Sector 7, near the colony worlds. Admiral Hayes believes it will be good training for them to observe proper galactic military procedures." Far away, in a different part of space, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the USS Defiance. The human battleship was large and gray, with thick armor plating covering its hull. Inside, the corridors were narrow and filled with pipes and cables. Everything looked functional rather than beautiful. Morrison was a tall man with short brown hair and tired eyes. He had fought in the AI War 20 years ago, when machines tried to destroy humanity. That war had lasted 5 years and killed millions of people. Now at age 45, he commanded one of humanity's newest ships. "Captain," said Lieutenant Commander Amy Rodriguez from her position at the tactical station. She was a small woman with black hair tied back in a tight ponytail. "We're receiving a distress signal from the Outer Rim." Morrison leaned forward. "What kind of distress signal?" "It's automated, sir, coming from the New Denver colony. The signal indicates possible hostile approach." "New Denver," Morrison repeated. The colony had 50,000 people, mostly families who had left Earth to start new lives. "How far out are we?" 6 hours at maximum speed, Captain." Morrison looked around his bridge. The crew was young but experienced. They had all served in the colonial defense forces protecting human settlements from pirates and raiders. None of them had fought in a real war except Morrison himself. "Set course for New Denver, maximum speed," Morrison ordered. "Yes, sir," replied Navigator Sam Tucker, a young man with red hair and freckles. On the Federation Council station, Admiral Lisa Hayes reviewed reports in her office. She was 50 years old with gray hair and sharp green eyes. As the human representative to the Federation, she worked hard to prove that humanity deserved its place among the galactic community. A message appeared on her desk screen. She read it quickly, then frowned. "Computer, connect me to Vraxian Command," she said. The screen changed to show Commander Zethka's face. "Admiral Hayes," Zethka said politely. "How may I assist you?" "Commander, I'm reading reports of Korthak fleet movements near human space. Is this part of a scheduled exercise?" Zethka's expression became serious. The Korthak hegemony has filed proper documentation for a territorial expansion operation. They are following all Federation protocols. Territorial expansion. They're moving toward New Denver. Yes, War Prime Thexmore believes the colony world would serve their empire well. He has 47 ships, which should be sufficient for a clean victory according to mathematical projections. Hayes felt cold. Commander, there are 50,000 civilians on that planet. They will be relocated according to Federation guidelines. The Korthak are not barbarians, Admiral. They follow the rules of civilized warfare. What about the USS Defiance? Captain Morrison is heading there now. Zethka looked confused. One ship against 47? Admiral, surely you will order Captain Morrison to withdraw. No commander would attempt such an unbalanced engagement. Hayes stared at the screen. She thought about Morrison's file. The man had fought in the AI war, where human ships often faced impossible odds. She remembered the stories about human tactics during that conflict. Ships that kept fighting even when they should have been destroyed. Crews that refused to surrender even when facing certain death. Commander, Hayes said slowly, I think you may not understand human military doctrine. Admiral, warfare is the same throughout the galaxy. Mathematics determines victory. Your Captain Morrison will retreat when he sees the Korthak fleet size. Hayes ended the communication and sat back in her chair. She looked out her office window at the stars. Somewhere out there, Morrison was flying toward a battle that any sane commander would avoid. But Hayes remembered something her grandfather had told her about the old wars on Earth. Humans don't fight to win points, he had said. We fight to win everything. She opened a new message to Morrison, then stopped. There was nothing she could say that would change what was about to happen. Morrison would do what humans always did when their people were threatened. He would fight regardless of the odds. In the Korthak fleet, War Prime Thexmore reviewed his battle plans. The Korthak were tall, gray-skinned beings with 4 arms and large heads. They were known throughout the galaxy for their disciplined approach to warfare. War Prime, said his tactical officer, our scouts report a single human vessel approaching New Denver. Thexmore looked at the data. One ship? Are there others following? No, War Prime. Just one battleship, designation USS Defiance. Thexmore made a sound that might have been laughter. Excellent. This will be an easy demonstration of Korthak superiority. When we arrive, send the standard surrender demand. The human commander will withdraw, and we can claim the planet without firing a shot. But as both fleets moved toward New Denver, none of the alien commanders understood what was about to happen. They thought they knew about war. They had fought battles for centuries using rules and mathematics. They had never faced an enemy that didn't care about rules. They had never fought humans. The USS Defiance dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Denver system. Captain Morrison stood on his bridge, looking at the tactical display that showed 47 red dots surrounding the blue dot that represented his home colony. Well, Morrison said quietly, that's a lot of ships. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez ran her hands over her tactical console, reading the enemy formation. Captain, I'm counting 20 heavy cruisers, 15 destroyers, and 12 support vessels. They're maintaining standard Federation battle formation at maximum range from the planet. Any communication from New Denver? Morrison asked. Communications Officer Betty Clark looked up from her station. Her face was pale but determined. Sir, the colony administrator sent a message 20 minutes ago. The Korthak fleet arrived and broadcast a surrender demand. The colonists have 6 hours to prepare for evacuation. Morrison walked to the front of the bridge and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 50,000 humans were packing their belongings, preparing to leave the homes they had built with their own hands. Children were probably crying. Parents were probably trying to explain why they had to leave everything behind. Captain, Navigator Tucker said from his station. Incoming transmission from the Korthak fleet. Put it on screen, Morrison ordered. The main viewing screen changed to show a tall gray alien with 4 arms and large black eyes. The creature wore what looked like military decorations across his chest. I am War Prime Thexmore of the Korthak hegemony, the alien said in perfect English. You command the human vessel that approaches our operation zone. That's right, Morrison replied. I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Defiance. Captain Morrison, I am required by Federation protocol to inform you that this system is now under Korthak territorial claim. Your presence here violates established boundaries of engagement. Morrison crossed his arms. Is that so? Yes. You have one. Ship. I have 47 ships. Mathematics clearly favors Korthak victory. Federation Warfare Protocol 7 Alpha requires you to withdraw immediately to prevent unnecessary loss of life. Morrison looked around his bridge. His crew was watching him, waiting for orders. Rodriguez had her hand on her weapon controls. Tucker was calculating escape routes. Clark was monitoring enemy communications. These people had volunteered to serve knowing they might die far from home. War Prime Thexmore, Morrison said slowly. I appreciate you following your protocols and all, but I'm going to have to decline your suggestion. The alien's large eyes seemed to grow even larger. Captain Morrison, perhaps you misunderstood. You have one ship. I have 47 ships. Retreat is the only logical option. I understood you just fine, Morrison replied. You want to take New Denver. I'm here to stop you. If you want that planet, you're going to have to go through my ship first. Thexmore's four arms moved in what might have been confusion. Captain, this is not how galactic warfare operates. No commander engages at such disadvantageous odds. You must retreat. Morrison smiled, but it was not a happy smile. War Prime, I think you're about to learn something new about human warfare. The transmission ended. On the bridge of his command ship, Thexmore stared at the blank screen. His tactical officer, a younger Korthak named Velnex, approached with obvious confusion. War Prime, the human ship is not retreating. It is moving toward our formation at full speed. Thexmore checked his own displays. The single human ship was indeed accelerating directly toward the center of the Korthak fleet. This violated every principle of space combat he had ever learned. Perhaps their navigation system is damaged, Thexmore suggested. Send another message. Remind them of the mathematical impossibility of their position. Meanwhile, aboard the Defiance, Morrison was giving orders that would have seemed insane to any alien commander. Rodriguez, I want all weapons ready for close-range engagement. Tucker, plot a course that takes us right through the middle of their formation. Clark, send a message to New Denver. Tell them we're here, and we're not leaving. Captain, Chief, Engineer Carlos Bennett called from his station. I can give you 130% power, but the engines weren't designed for this kind of stress. How long can you hold it? Morrison asked. As long as you need, sir. We'll make it work. Dr. Helen Foster, the ship's medical officer, spoke from her position near the back of the bridge. Captain, I have medical teams standing by on all decks. Damage control parties are ready. Morrison nodded. These people had served with him for 3 years. They knew him, and he knew them. More importantly, they all understood what was at stake. All hands, this is the captain, Morrison said over the ship's communication system. In about 10 minutes, we're going to engage 47 enemy ships in defense of New Denver Colony. I won't lie to you, the odds are not good, but those are our people down there and we're the only thing standing between them and forced evacuation from their homes. He paused, looking around the bridge. We're going to show these aliens something they've never seen before. We're going to show them how humans fight when everything we care about is on the line. All stations prepare for battle. The Defiance continued its charge toward the Korthak fleet. On alien ships throughout the formation, commanders watched their displays. In growing confusion, the human vessel was not slowing down, it was not changing course. It was accelerating directly toward them. War Prime Thexmore received reports from his ship captains. All of them asked the same question. What should they do about a ship that refused to follow the rules? Begin long-range bombardment, Thexmore ordered. Light damage only. Once they see they are outgunned, they will retreat according to protocol. Energy beams lanced out from the Korthak ship, striking the Defiance's hull. The human ship shuddered under the impacts but kept coming. On the Defiance bridge, Rodriguez called out damage reports. Hull breach on Deck 7, Shield generators. Holding at 80%. All weapon systems operational. Return fire, Morrison ordered. The Defiance opened fire with weapons the Korthak had never seen before, instead of controlled energy beams. The human ship launched kinetic projectiles that moved faster than anything in the alien arsenal. Missiles that changed course in flight, seeking their targets. And strangest of all, electromagnetic pulse weapons that disabled enemy ships without destroying them. 3 Korthak vessels went dark, their systems overloaded. War Prime, Velnex reported with obvious alarm. The human ship is using weapons that violate standard engagement protocols. They are targeting our systems instead of following gradual damage procedures. Thexmore watched the tactical display in growing horror. The human ship was now inside his formation, moving between his vessels at close range. It was using his own ships as cover, making it impossible for his fleet to fire without hitting each other. "This is impossible," he whispered. "No one fights like this." On the Defiance, Morrison stood calmly in the center of his bridge as his ship shook under enemy fire. Around him, his crew worked with the efficiency that came from years of training and absolute trust in each other. "Rodriguez, target their command ship. Tucker, bring us around for another pass. Bennett, I need more power to the forward shields." "Captain," Clark called out, "I'm picking up Federation observer ships on the edge of the system. They're watching the battle." Morrison smiled grimly. "Good. Let them watch. Let them see what happened when someone threatened human civilians. The real battle was just beginning." The USS Defiance spun through space like a dancer, weaving between the larger Korthak ships with movements that defied military logic. Captain Morrison gripped his command chair as his ship took another hit, this one strong enough to make the lights flicker. "Damage report," Morrison called out. "Hull integrity down to 45%, Rodriguez replied, her fingers flying over her tactical controls. "We've lost sections 12 through 15 on the port side. Emergency bulkheads are holding. Around..." The Korthak fleet, alien commanders watched their displays in growing panic. The human ship should have retreated when hull damage reached 60%. That was the rule. But the Defiance kept fighting, kept moving, kept firing back with weapons that seemed to get more dangerous as the ship took more damage. War Prime Thexmore stood on his bridge, all 4 arms gesturing wildly as he tried to understand what he was seeing. "Tactical Officer Velnex, explain to me how one damaged ship is destroying my fleet formation." Velnex's gray skin had turned pale with stress. "War Prime, the human vessel is not following any known combat doctrine. They are using our own positioning. Against us, when we fire at them, they move behind our ships, forcing us to choose between hitting them and hitting our own vessels." "And their weapons?" "Sir, they appear to have multiple weapon systems for different purposes. Energy weapons that adapt to our shield frequencies, kinetic projectiles that punch through our armor, and some kind of electromagnetic device that shuts down our systems without destroying them." Thexmore watched as another of his ships went dark, its crew probably scrambling to restart their power systems. "How many ships have we lost?" 7 completely disabled, War Prime. 3 more with heavy damage. The human ship has taken damage that should have destroyed it, but their crew continues to fight. On the Defiance, Chief Engineer Bennett worked in the damaged sections of the ship, leading repair teams that moved through corridors filled with smoke and sparks. His uniform was torn and dirty, but his voice remained calm over the communication system. "Captain, I've got teams working on the port hull breach. We can't fix it completely, but we can make it stronger. Also, I'm rerouting power from the damaged sections to boost our remaining weapon systems." Morrison smiled despite the situation. This was why he loved his crew. They didn't waste time complaining about what was broken. They found ways to make what was left work better. "Rodriguez, what's our ammunition status?" "Kinetic rounds down to 60%, Captain. Missiles at 40%, but I've been talking to Bennett about something." "What kind of something?" Rodriguez turned in her chair, her dark eyes bright with an idea that probably violated every safety regulation in the book. "Sir, we're losing hull sections anyway. What if we use them as weapons?" Morrison raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "We've got damaged sections that we're going to lose anyway when the hull integrity fails. Instead of letting them break off randomly, we could launch them at enemy ships." big chunks of metal and machinery moving at high speed. They wouldn't expect it. From his position at the engineering station, Bennett added, I could rig some of the damaged sections with small explosive charges. Not enough to hurt us, but enough to make sure they hit hard when they reach the target. Morrison looked around his bridge. His crew was suggesting they turn their own damaged ship into a weapon. It was crazy, dangerous, and completely against every rule of space combat. Do it, he ordered. Across the battle zone, Federation observer ships watched in stunned silence. Admiral Hayes sat in her command chair aboard the Federation vessel Harmony, trying to understand what she was seeing. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, the human ship has just launched pieces of its own hull at the Korthak vessels. Pieces of its own hull? Yes, ma'am. Large sections of damaged ship structure moving at high velocity. They're actually hitting their targets. Hayes watched the display as chunks of the Defiance's hull slammed into Korthak ships, causing damage that forced more vessels to retreat for repairs. Get me a communication link to Commander Zeth-Ka. The Vraxian commander appeared on screen, his blue face showing confusion and something that might have been fear. Admiral Hayes, Zeth-Ka said, what are your people doing out there? Commander, I'm not entirely sure, but I think we're seeing human military doctrine in action for the first time. This is not military doctrine, Admiral. This is madness. They are destroying their own ship to damage the enemy. No rational species fights this way. Hayes thought about the history lessons she had learned as a child, stories about human naval battles on Earth's oceans, where captains would ram enemy ships when they ran out of ammunition. Tales of soldiers who continued fighting even when outnumbered and surrounded. Commander, Hayes said quietly, humans don't fight to follow rules. We fight to win. Back on the Defiance, the battle had reached a new level of intensity. The ship's hull was now more holes than metal, but somehow it kept moving and fighting. Morrison walked between stations, checking on his crew and making decisions that would have terrified a sane commander. Captain, Dr. Foster called from her medical station. I've got wounded crew members asking to return to duty. Some of them can barely walk. What did you tell them? Morrison asked. I told them to get back to their stations if they could still work. We need everyone. Navigator Tucker looked up from his console, which now showed more red warning lights than green ones. Captain, I'm reading massive damage to our propulsion systems. We're losing speed. How much speed do we have left? Enough for one more run. At their command ship, sir. After that, we'll be on emergency power only. Morrison nodded. One more run. That would have to be enough. He opened the ship-wide communication system again. All hands. This is the captain. We're going to make one final attack on the enemy command ship. After this, we probably won't have enough power left for maneuvering. I want everyone to know that you've fought better than any crew in the history of space warfare. Whether we make it through this or not, New Denver is going to stay free because of what we've done here today. Around the bridge, his officers prepared for what might be their last fight. Rodriguez armed the remaining weapons. Tucker plotted a course directly at the Korthak command ship. Bennett prepared to give everything the engines had left. And in the middle of it all, Morrison realized something that the aliens would never understand. His crew wasn't fighting because they expected to win. They were fighting because some things were worth dying for. The Defiance began its final attack run. The USS Defiance looked like a ghost ship as it made its final approach toward the Korthak command vessel. Half of its hull was gone, trailing debris and atmosphere into space. Sparks flew from damaged systems. The ship's lights flickered on and off. But somehow, impossibly, it kept moving forward. Captain Morrison stood on his bridge, holding onto his command chair for support. Blood ran down his face from a cut on his forehead, but his eyes remained focused on the main screen showing the enemy command ship growing larger. Distance to target? Morrison asked. Navigator Tucker's console was mostly dark now, but he managed to read the numbers. 15,000 meters in closing, Captain. At current speed, impact in 90 seconds. Rodriguez, do we have any weapons left? Torpedo tubes are damaged, sir. Energy weapons are offline, but I've got one idea. Rodriguez's Voice was steady despite the chaos around her. I can overload our remaining power core and detonate it on impact. It won't destroy their ship completely, but it will cripple them. Morrison nodded. He had expected this moment. When ammunition ran out, when weapons failed, humans found other ways to keep fighting. On the Korthak command ship, War Prime Thex Moore watched the approaching human vessel with something close to panic. His bridge crew moved frantically between stations trying to understand what they were seeing. War Prime, Tactical Officer Velnex reported. The human ship is on a collision course. They are not slowing down. They must be trying to ram us, Thex Moore said, his forearms shaking. This is impossible. No commander would sacrifice his ship and crew in such a manner. Sir, should we move to avoid collision? Thex Moore stared at the display. If he moved his command ship, it would be the first time in Korthak military history that a commander had retreated from a single enemy vessel. But if he stayed, the human ship would crash into them at full speed. War Prime, another officer called out. The human vessel is broadcasting a message. Put it on speakers, Thex Moore ordered. Communications Officer Betty Clark's voice came through the speakers, clear and calm despite the desperate situation. This is the USS Defiance to all ships in the area. We are about to demonstrate something that your species has never seen before. We are going to show you what total war looks like. The message continued. Humans don't fight wars to win points or follow protocols. We fight wars to protect our families, our homes, and our way of life. When you threaten what we love, we will give everything we have to stop you. Everything. Clark's voice grew stronger. To the Federation observers watching this battle, remember what you see here today. Remember that there are different ways to understand warfare. Sometimes the most important battles are not won by mathematics or superior numbers. Sometimes they are won by determination and the willingness to sacrifice everything for what matters most. On the Federation observer ship Harmony, Admiral Hayes listened to the message with growing understanding. She finally saw what made humans different from every other species in the galaxy. Admiral, her tactical officer said quietly, the human ship is 60 seconds from impact. Hayes opened a communication channel to Commander Zeth Ka. The Vraxian appeared on screen, his blue face pale with shock. Commander, Hayes said, are you seeing this? Admiral, this is madness. The human captain is going to destroy his own ship and kill his entire crew. For what purpose? To protect 50,000 colonists who will never know his name, Hayes replied. To show 47 enemy ships that humans cannot be intimidated by superior numbers. To prove that some things are worth dying for. Zeth Ka's large eyes stared at her. But Admiral, they are going to lose. Even if they destroy the Korthak command ship, the other vessels will still take the planet. Hayes smiled sadly. Commander, you still don't understand. Watch what happens next. On the Defiance, Morrison made his final preparations. The ship was falling apart around him, but his crew remained at their stations. Chief Engineer Bennett had jury-rigged the power core to explode on command. Dr. Foster had moved the wounded to the safest parts of the ship she could find. Navigator Tucker kept them pointed at the enemy despite failing navigation systems. Captain, Rodriguez said, 30 seconds to impact. Should I detonate the power core? Morrison looked around his bridge one last time. These people had followed him into an impossible battle because they believed in what they were fighting for. They deserved better than dying in empty space. But sometimes the choice was taken away from you. Wait for my command, Morrison said. At that moment, something unexpected happened. The Korthak command ship began to move sideways, trying to avoid the collision. War Prime Thex Moore is retreating, Tucker reported with surprise. But Morrison had been expecting this. He had studied alien military doctrine during the long journey to New Denver. He knew that alien commanders were taught to preserve their ships and crews above all else. Rodriguez now, Morrison ordered. The power core detonated just as the Defiance struck the Korthak command ship's hull. The explosion tore through both vessels, crippling the alien ship and completely destroying what remained of the human battleship. For a moment, space was filled with fire and debris, then silence. War Prime Thexmore found himself on the floor of his damaged bridge, emergency lights flashing around him. Half his systems were offline. His ship was crippled, but not destroyed. Damage report, he called out weakly. War Prime, we have lost main power, weapon systems and propulsion. Life support is on emergency backup. We are unable to continue military operations. Thexmore looked at his display, which still showed the other ships in his fleet. 39 vessels remained operational. By all mathematical calculations, they had won the battle. The human ship was completely destroyed. But something had changed. For the first time in Korthak military history, their fleet had been challenged by an enemy that refused to surrender. An enemy that fought until the very end, even when victory was impossible. Communications, Thexmore said slowly. Send a message to all ships. We are withdrawing from this system. War Prime? Velnex looked confused. But sir, we still have overwhelming superiority. We can still take the planet. Thexmore stared out at the debris field where the human ship had been. No, he said quietly. We cannot. If we stay, more human ships will come. And they will all fight like that one did. Around the Korthak fleet, other commanders received the withdrawal order with relief. They had seen something today that would change how they thought about warfare forever. They had learned that some enemies were more dangerous when they were losing than when they were winning. The battle was over, but the real war was just beginning. 3 days after the battle, rescue ships arrived at New Denver to find something unprecedented in galactic history. The debris field where the USS Defiance had made its final stand was filled with escape pods and emergency shelters. Somehow, incredibly, most of the human crew had survived. Captain Morrison floated in medical bay aboard the Federation rescue ship, his body wrapped in bandages, but his mind still sharp. Admiral Hayes sat beside his bed reading reports that were changing everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. Jake, Hayes said quietly, do you know what you've done? Morrison tried to smile, though it hurt his face. I hope we saved New Denver. You did more than that. The Korthak fleet retreated completely. 39 ships, all operational, withdrew from human space because of what one crew did with one ship. Morrison closed his eyes. What about my people? 83% survival rate. Your crew is being treated as heroes throughout Federation space, but Jake, that's not the important part. Hayes pulled up a data pad and showed Morrison the screen. Every military academy in the galaxy is requesting copies of the battle recordings. They want to study human tactics. Commander Zethka has filed a report recommending complete revision of Federation military doctrine. What kind of revision? The kind that admits mathematical superiority doesn't mean anything if your enemy refuses to acknowledge mathematics? 2 weeks later, Commander Zethka stood before the Federation Military Council, a gathering of representatives from dozens of alien species. His blue skin was pale as he delivered his report. Council members, Zethka began, I have spent 3 centuries studying warfare. I believed I understood every aspect of military science. The battle at New Denver has proven me wrong. The council chamber was silent. These were beings who had maintained galactic peace through carefully controlled conflicts for hundreds of years. The human approach to warfare is fundamentally different from our own. Zethka continued, where we see mathematics, they see commitment. Where we calculate acceptable losses, they calculate necessary sacrifices. Where we plan tactical withdrawals, they plan to fight until victory or death. A representative from the Alterian Republic raised a tentacle. Commander, surely you are overstating the case. One battle does not change the nature of warfare. Zethka activated a holographic display showing the battle. Council members, observe how the human vessel continued fighting at 15% hull integrity. Note how the crew used their own ship as a weapon when conventional weapons failed. Consider that the enemy commander chose total destruction, rather than surrender. The aliens watched the recording in growing unease. Many had never seen a ship deliberately ram another vessel. The concept of using your own destruction as a weapon was foreign to species that valued efficiency and resource preservation. "What are you recommending, Commander?" asked the council leader. "I recommend that we invite human military advisors to review our defensive strategies. More importantly, I recommend that we never, under any circumstances, find ourselves at war with the human species." On Earth, news of the New Denver battle spread through human space like wildfire. Jake Morrison became the most famous captain in human history, though he spent most of his time trying to avoid reporters. Admiral Hayes found him 6 months later in a shipyard orbiting Mars, where he was overseeing construction of a new vessel. This ship was different from anything that had come before. It combined human durability with alien technology, human tactics with alien efficiency. "Still trying to build the perfect warship?" Hayes asked as she joined Morrison on the observation deck. "Not perfect," Morrison replied, watching workers install armor plating that could repair itself. "Just better than what we had." Hayes looked at the construction reports. "The aliens are calling it a hybrid design. Human endurance, Vraxian energy systems, Alterian shielding, even some Korthak weapons technology. War Prime Thexmore has been surprisingly helpful," Morrison said with amusement. "Turns out he respects people who fight as hard as we do, even if he doesn't understand why we do it." "And the crew?" Morrison pointed to the docking bay where familiar faces were boarding the new ship. Rodriguez had been promoted to commander. Tucker was now chief navigator. Bennett had a team of both human and alien engineers working under him. Dr. Foster was training alien medics in human damage control procedures. "Same people, Jake?" "Same people. They've been through the fire with me. I trust them to handle whatever comes next." Hayes handed him a data pad. "Speaking of what comes next, you might want to read this." Morrison scanned the document, his eyebrows rising as he read. "The Federation wants to establish a joint military academy with human instructors. Not just instructors. They want you to head the program. Teach alien officers how to think like human commanders." Morrison laughed, a sound that still carried echoes of pain from his injuries. "Admiral, I'm not sure the galaxy is ready for a bunch of alien officers who think like humans. Maybe not. But after New Denver, they know they need to be ready." 6 months later, the first class of the Federation Military Academy graduated with mixed human and alien crews. The graduation ceremony was attended by representatives from every major galactic power. Commander Rodriguez, now captain of her own vessel, gave the commencement address. She spoke about the difference between fighting to win and fighting for something worth winning. She explained how human military doctrine wasn't about being stronger or smarter than the enemy, but about being more determined. In the audience, War Prime Thexmore sat next to Commander Zeth-Ka, both aliens taking notes, as the human officer spoke. "Do you understand it now?" Zeth-Ka asked quietly. Thexmore considered the question. "I understand that humans fight differently than we do. I understand that they are willing to accept costs that we would consider unacceptable. I understand that mathematics alone cannot predict victory against such an enemy. And does that concern you?" Thexmore watched the mixed crews of graduates receiving their assignments. Humans and aliens working together, learning from each other, preparing to defend the galaxy using tactics that combine the best of both approaches. "No," Thexmore said finally. "It gives me hope. Any enemy that threatens the Federation now must face not just our superior numbers and technology, but human determination and sacrifice. That combination may be unstoppable. Above them, the new ships of the Federation fleet move through space on patrol missions. They look different from the vessels that had come before, heavier, more robust, designed to keep fighting long after conventional wisdom said they should have been destroyed. The galaxy had learned that there were different ways to understand war. Sometimes the most primitive approach was also the most effective. And sometimes the willingness to die for what you believed in was more powerful than any weapon ever built. The age of mathematical warfare was ending. The age of human determination had begun.